Hello, it's Randy Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randy Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
It's Friday, you bastards. Everybody, it's Friday, you bastards. Yay! Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. 8 segments to beer. Maybe a little bourbon. Oh, this was a rough one, and I have to sleep. I'm actually getting messages from around the world. It's so interesting, especially my friends in Sweden. Hi, Sweden, who's telling me, oh, go cuddle up with Howard. I hope you get some sleep. I really do. We need you so bad. It's adorable. But yeah, it's been crazy. And you know, Tuesday was supposed to be the big game changer. Tuesday, he was almost presidential, according to Van Jones, right? Well, he didn't say almost. Van Jones was like, this is the moment that he became presidential. This is the moment. I've been waiting for this moment, and it happened. It came. It happened. It happened. It was like the best 13 seconds of Van Jones' life, apparently, which I'm about to have tonight. But it just all, woo, 48 hours later is about Russia again. Isn't that something? Isn't that just incredible? It's an amazing thing. Oh, and let's get the Pence got hacked story out of the way. Yes, it turns out that as governor of Indiana, Mike Pence used a private email server and a private email account and got hacked. Let's dial up Jason Chavez. Call Daryl Issa. Get him on the phone right away, right away. So I think the worst part of this story is it was an AOL account, which makes him not just somebody who's a hypocrite, but he's a loser. I mean, an AOL account? What, did you get it in the mail on a disc, like a little floppy or something, and you put it in? You know, like AOL, was that a dial-up account? I'm like, oh my God, AOL, total loser. I mean, amazing, just amazing. You know, mishandling information is a crime, but, you know, so is having an AOL account in 2016, I think. Isn't it? You know, my techies, we're going to need all your help, all your help. Hi, Mike. I love Mike. There's a guy out there that's not Mike Pence. No, there's a guy out there that's helping me recreate the Cambridge Analytics scenario and a couple of other ones too. But anyway, his AOL account got hacked over the summer by some scammer who sent a message to his entire email list saying that Mr. and Mrs. Pence were stranded in the Philippines and needed money to get home. This scam is as old as an AOL account. That's what I think is the worst part about this story. I mean, so, you know, listen, I know of no one who doesn't have a private server. I have a private server. Okay? Don't I? Yes. Of course I do. I worked for Clear Channel. There was no way I was going to use my Clear Channel net account. There was no way. There was not a chance. So for years now, I've had a private server. It's not in my basement because I live in Florida. We're at 0 sea level. Okay, there's no basements here. But an AOL account. Oh, how we laughed. So that's that story. And yes, it's time to it depends on how you view things. It's either time to lock him up for being a complete loser and using AOL, or just move on. Nothing to see here. For me, the only part of the story that really stood out was an AOL server, and that he tried to not deny it. See, this is the problem with all the people in the Trump administration, is they try to deny reality over and over and over again. And, the Republicans are even hiding the Obamacare bill. Do you know that? Did you see Steny Hoyer yesterday? He went and had a little talk with Lincoln, the bust in Statuary Hall, asking President Lincoln to tell him, where is the hidden Obamacare bill? They just want to find, apparently, the bill is literally under lock and key in a special room in the Capitol where nobody is allowed to see it because it's probably on an AOL server. That's all I could think of. And, it must be really good, right? They must be really proud of it, huh? It's under lock and key in a special room. So, and they attacked the ACA for being too many pages. Remember that? And remember, it took me 3 weeks to read through those 1,000 pages. 3 weeks it took me. For people who don't read, just as a side-by-side comparison, you can read Orwell's 1984 in one Saturday afternoon. If you sat your butt in a chair and picked it up, you'd be done like at 9 o'clock in the morning with a cup of coffee. You'd be done reading it by beer o'clock. Okay, that's this bill, this ACA bill, took me 3 weeks to read, and I needed 3 lawyers to guide me through some of the provisions, you know what I mean? And then we talked to healthcare experts. We talked to, remember, what was his name? Potter. He was fabulous. We talked to Kaiser. We talked to so many healthcare experts. You know, this is when we were broadcasting in Washington, D.C. I remember I had a big plaque, like where the curtains are behind me. I had this big, giant, oak tag thing, you know, and it had, as we went through it, it had what this part meant and what that part meant and how this part affected that part. And if you didn't have this, then that wouldn't work, you know, and we had this big, giant board behind us so that we could, you know, explain, fairly easily any questions that came our way about what does this mean. So that took 3 weeks to read. Now they've got some and they were saying, oh, it's too many pages. It's too many pages. But at least you were allowed to read it. And I know they go, you'll find out what's in it when you read it, as the Republican, rallying cry for why it's okay to have it under lock and key in the Capitol somewhere. It's okay because the Republicans didn't bother to read it before they voted on it, and of course they didn't bother to read it because they were voting no. They just didn't give a rat's ass, even though it was a Heritage Foundation proposal. That's where the ACA came from. And number 2, it was called Romney Care before it was Obamacare. And now they don't want it to be Obamacare. Well, the Republicans want it to be Obamacare, but it's going to be Trump Care. So it's going to have all these different names, the ACA, but the Republicans don't want their opponents to find out what's in the replacement bill. And the opponents they worry the most about are their fellow Republicans. That's the sick part. And see, this is their problem. They just can't tell the truth about anything, and that's why they're in so much hot water all the time. Because listen, I'm gonna take the break, and then we're gonna come back. And I think I have the simplest explanation, which is, I think it's my little gift to the world, is we can make complex stories like the ACA fairly understandable, accessible, and simple enough that people can be informed enough to know where they stand on the issue, how it will affect their lives, or whether or not, we needed to impeach President Clinton because he lied about sex. Do you know what I mean? We've had these conversations and keep things that get uber complicated. The Jack Abramoff scandal was one of those, and we kept it fairly simple for you, right? So I think I have this very easy way to explain the Russia thing with Trump. And it's going to become uber clear how this all happened and why they lie about it. And the only reason why Trump isn't getting weeping pundits anymore, oh, he's so presidential, is because he lied this week.
Clear for takeoff.
Randy Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandyRhodes.com.
Now that Trump's moved into the White House, I know. You could see he wasted no time. He went to work for his ultra-wealthy pals. He's making fundamental economic changes that are going to affect your money and your retirement. He's chipping away at banking regulations. He's going after Dodd-Frank, and that unwinds the fiduciary rule. That's a rule that keeps your money safe from deceptive financial practices. Like I said before, this administration is so awful. They are so greedy. And that's why now, more than ever, is the best time to diversify your retirement portfolio like I did. Gold's low low correlation with stocks and bonds can help you in times of uncertainty. Call my friends at ITM Trading. Get a free gold kit. Learn why gold survives every government, every currency, every economic crisis. Call ITM today at 1-888-OWN-GOLD for guidance from their precious metals experts. They've helped thousands of people just like me buy gold and silver coins and bars, and they can help you too. 1-888-OWN-GOLD. Call 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1945. National headlines spread fear of the growing wildcat strikes at Chrysler and Briggs auto plants in Detroit. The wildcats had increased to 35,000 strikers and idled workers at 2 Chrysler plants and 7 Briggs plants. The strike wave started a week earlier at the Dodge main plant in Detroit. 8 of the union's best leaders had been discharged for refusing to go along with a production line speed up. Briggs management followed Chrysler's union-busting campaign by firing 7 UAW officers at the Mack Avenue plant. 3 days later, Briggs fired another 8 committeemen and stewards, which then provoked the walkout. Company officials and the War Labor Board were outraged at the halt in war production of tanks, B-29 Super Fortresses, anti-aircraft guns, rockets, and trucks. The Michigan legislature introduced a bill to define as a felony any strike participation that violated a labor relations contract. The War Labor Board demanded that both sides meet in Washington to end the walkout. Strike leaders defied the wartime no-strike pledge and ignored the international's threat of disciplinary action. Strikers had the full backing of local UAW presidents. The UAW conceded that management had provoked the wildcatting through indiscriminate firings. Workers argued that if the War Labor Board prioritized production over union busting, they would order the reinstatement of all the discharged leaders. The Flint Labor Council passed a resolution demanding that all CIO and other union representatives resign immediately from the War Labor Board. It considered the board as stacked against labor. Workers at Chrysler and Briggs would soon end their walkout with guarantees of arbitration for reinstatement of the fired militants.
We did it, you bastards! We're live, and it only took 2 years! Okay. All right. So we're back, we're live, and you're there, and we're here, and ain't that great? Now, let me just tell you that if you want to listen whenever and wherever you'd like to listen, just go to randyrhodes.com, click on podcasts and swag, and get your podcast commercial-free, on demand, on any device. randyrhodes.com. Open all day, every day.
You've got mail.
Wow.
To speak to Randy, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
The Randy Rhodes Air Force.
You can't handle the truth.
Well, I hope you can. All right. Here's a very simple explanation without the backstory. We'll tell you the backstory after we give you the very simple explanation. How in the hell did Donald Trump become all Russiaed up? Why is he so fascinated with Vladimir Putin, and why is he's so beholden to, God? How did he even meet these guys? Felix Sater and Paul Manafort, and how did all these Russian influences come to play into Donald Trump's life? Well, it seems like. You remember when Donald Trump was, investing in Atlantic City, right? It was the 90s. And he went bankrupt so many times, and he stiffed every investor. He stiffed contractors. He stiffed investors. He refused to pay loans back, all kinds of this. And so what Donald Trump did while he walked away, completely unscathed as far as, losing his own money, lenders lost their shirts. You remember we played you clips from a Frontline special with all of the remembrances of the contractors that were stiffed, the guys that did the windows and the banks and everything. Okay. So Donald Trump couldn't find anybody to lend him money. And, Donald Trump doesn't use his own money. Donald Trump uses other people's money, and he used banks' money. And when he ran out of lenders and lenders wouldn't lend to him, he went abroad. He went overseas. Deutsche Bank was, it's not a U.S. bank, but they put Donald Trump's family under an amazing amount of strain because he didn't want to pay Deutsche Bank back. There's a big lawsuit. There was a big lawsuit with Donald Trump. They said, you owe us, X million. And he's turned around and sued them for billions. Okay, saying you caused your own problems because after 2008 and all this stuff, right? And make a long story short, he started looking for other banks. It seems like he ended up in post-Soviet successor states and Russia, like Ukraine and Iceland, and whether or not this has to do with his lawyer, Michael Cohen, who's been in business with Donald Trump for decades, or this character Felix Sater, who I'll give you the background on Felix Sater after I explain this to you. It's not speculation. These things happened. Felix Sater worked with Donald Trump as his senior advisor, and Felix Sater introduced Donald Trump to all these Russian oligarchs, and Felix Sater introduced Donald Trump and his family's business to all of this flight capital and all of this, these Russian multi-billionaires many times over who wanted to get their money out of Russia and into some, safe haven. And Donald Trump happened to be in real estate and in New York, which was, a big plus because there's so much dirty money in New York real estate. If you watch, $1 Million Listing New York, there's always, some Chinese guy who sends his, representative over to the United States to take photos of the $25 million penthouse. There's always a Russian guy. You never see the guy who's buying, but they're on the phone and they're going, is this your best and final? Yes. And he's translating it into Russian, and the guy goes, okay, I'll take it. So it was a great place for them. Okay. And they bought so many apartment units in all of these high rises that were just popping up in New York. None of that is illegal. None of it. Foreign capital. Listen, you have all these different, the Russians buy this building, and then before that, the Arabs buy that building, and then before that, the Chinese buy this building, and in New York, there's always a new influx of flight capital. In Miami too. It's another place where drug money gets laundered, and flight capital ends up. So Donald Trump starts building stuff in Fort Lauderdale. Okay. Donald Trump is now in this world. He's in that Russian oligarchy world. He associates with all these people, and he starts to think like they do. He starts to envy almost these Russian oligarchs and the mafiosos and even the legitimate people. He can't even tell the difference between the legitimate people and the mafiosos and the oligarchs. He just knows, and this is where it comes into play where, Trump Jr. says, we're inundated with Russian capital. I mean, the biggest chunk of our business is Russian money. So that's important to know. And so he's in this world. And of course, Trump is highly secretive. But he's got all these partners with all these connections to all these oligarchs and all of this $1 billion worth of capital, okay? And so nobody, cares about Donald Trump at this point. No one gives a rat's ass who's buying his apartments. And, of course, make a long story short, Donald Trump is a clown. He's the host of a reality TV show. Okay, he's on The Apprentice, and he's branding himself, and he's putting his name on things. And so, do you really think anybody cared about foreign money in New York real estate and in Florida real estate? Nobody cared. But now, all of a sudden, in 2014, Russia invades Ukraine and seizes Crimea. And now, all of a sudden, these oligarchs are saying, we may be in trouble. We may be in trouble because the United States wants to put sanctions on Russia. So this becomes very serious to Donald Trump. Why? Because Donald Trump thinks maybe his influx of Russian capital will come to a screeching halt. And that's what he's dependent upon to live. And so talking to all these oligarchs, because he's now in this world and has been since the 90s and the early aughts, or whatever you want to call the 2000s. So now all of a sudden the Russians are telling him, we may have a problem here, Donald. We may not be able to get our money out of the country because the United States, Obama is going to put sanctions on Russia and that damn Hillary Clinton over at the State Department. And what are you going to do about it? You better do something because, frankly, we won't be able to support you in the manner in which you've become accustomed. You remember that stupid mansion you bought in Palm Beach? That thing was $45 million. It was dilapidated. It had mold everywhere. It was just a disaster. But some Russian oligarch bought it from you for $100 million. That kind of deal ain't going to happen because if Russia's under sanctions, it won't be allowed. It won't be able to happen. So now all of a sudden, Donald Trump becomes very interested in tamping down the story of the annexation of Crimea and all things Crimea and all things Ukrainian and Manafort is the lobbyist for this Viktor Yanukovych, who is pro-Russian. Says he doesn't talk to anybody in Russia. He knows this is where it gets so sick, where he says, you all knew Manafort worked for Ukraine, not the Russians. Ukraine, but Yanukovych was very pro-Russian and all right. So for Donald Trump to pretend he doesn't understand that they're in Crimea, first of all, is such a freaking lie, and this is why he gets himself in trouble, okay? Because he lies. But this is why he gets involved, and so it's bad for Donald Trump. Therefore, it's bad, sad. Sanctions are bad because it's bad for Trump. So by 2015, Donald Trump has already given 10 to 15 years working with Michael Cohen and Felix Sater and Paul Manafort and this guy Tevfik Arif from Bayrock, who introduced him to all these Russian oligarchs in the first place. Now they're talking sanctions. And so by 2015, sanctions are wrong. Russia is good. Putin is strong, right? And this is why he says, why can't we all just get along? Why can't we just get along with Russia? Also, Carter Page is named as his first, foreign policy advisor. Carter Page also in Russia saying sanctions bad because Carter Page is an oil guy, right? And he's got these big oil, and the same thing with Rex Tillerson. This is how they all know each other. Okay, sanctions bad for Rex, bad for ExxonMobil, bad for Carter Page and his energy business, bad for Donald Trump because the oligarch money is coming flowing, into Florida now in his, condos in Fort Lauderdale, which go belly up. And he sees the leading edge of the sanctions, here comes the stalling of the money from Russia. Better do something. And suddenly Donald Trump says, I'll run for president. And I'll undo the sanctions. That's what I'll do. And that's how it got to be Russia. That's how we got here. And that's why you have Carter Page and Paul Manafort and, Rex Tillerson and, all these people under investigation by the FBI, by the CIA for lying about their contacts with Russia. Now, they shouldn't have lied about their contacts with Russia because they should have just said, hey, sanctions were bad for our business. That's the way it is. And of course we were talking to Russia and we were telling them things like, trust us, we'll get rid of the sanctions. Maybe people wouldn't have voted for him. Maybe they would. But you can't lie like this and not expect that the lie is going to be exposed. And now it's the cover-up that's getting them. It's the cover-up that's killing them. It's not. Listen, Donald Trump has business associates and supporters and hangers-on that have had a very tough time not committing a large number of lies and bad acts in the process of trying to be friends with Russian government officials, Russian ambassadors, Russian oligarchs, and Russian mafioso types. Now, if they would have told the truth, maybe he wouldn't have won. But this is why he's all Russiaed up. Because it was bad for his business. And the people around him agreed it was bad for theirs. And that's all that's going on here. But then they freaking lied. And they covered it up. Now, here's the problem. This is why you need to know Felix Sater's background and who he is. Felix Sater is the guy who stabbed a guy in the neck with the stem of a margarita glass and was in a bar fight, and then became involved in a pump and dump penny stock scheme that was associated with the Genovese and the Gambino crime family. He was arrested. He was arrested in 1998, so he tried to make a deal to save himself. Now, there's reporting that's reliable that says that he was offered to do work with the CIA to facilitate the purchase of Stinger missiles on the black market of weapons, on the black weapons market in post-Soviet Central Asia, which are the stands. You understand? Kazakhstan, Afghanistan. Now, remember, the Russians have been fighting in Afghanistan for, 9 years, and they went broke doing it. So Sater offered to sell Stinger missiles on the black market in post-Soviet Central Asia for the CIA. Now, according to his business partner, Salvatore Loria, who wrote an entire book detailing this story, and yes, Loria was with him the night he stabbed the guy in the neck with the margarita glass. So they've been friends forever, okay? So Salvatore Loria wrote this book detailing the story, and he says that the CIA was much more interested in working with Felix Sater than the FBI was, because they had a business, spying on Russia and what Russia was doing in the stands. And so the deal that Sater made seems to have been that they'd flip him, and he'd become a CIA operator. So the plan fell apart. Sater and Loria were looking at doing hard time because they had defrauded this pump and dump scheme of theirs. They had defrauded their investors of more than $40 million. And so it looked like they were going to jail. This made them even more desperate. But then 9/11 happened and everything changed. And suddenly the federal government was very interested in Felix Sater's help again. Now, Sater's attorney, his own attorney, Robert Wolf, said all these things about Sater. He said he told the Washington Times, which is the Sun Myung Moon newspaper, in early 2015, he said that Felix Sater worked on, quote, the most serious matters of national security, battling our greatest enemies at tremendous risk to his own life and for the benefits of all citizens of our country, saving potentially tens of thousands, if not millions, of our citizens' lives. So this is his own attorney saying that, yes, he was turned by the CIA and he made a deal, and that he is unbelievably good at saving millions of American lives. Okay. It sounds crazy and it sounds wild and it sounds hyperbolic, and it probably isn't as big as that. But here we have Felix Sater's own lawyer saying that Felix Sater is working with the CIA. Okay. Now, here's what's interesting. Felix Sater's cooperation and work for our government, of course, was secret. And they went to great lengths, our government did, to keep everything about Sater secret. Even all the documents related to his prosecution, to his crimes, the indictment, the prosecution, the chart, everything has been kept under seal. It took a lot to get Sater's crimes out in the open. Because federal judges even pursued what, Josh Marshall from Talking Points memo, he called it reasonably, he said federal judges even pursued what might reasonably be called a vendetta against two lawyers who used leaked information about Sater's case in lawsuits growing out of a failed Trump building venture, the Trump Fort Lauderdale project, as well as lawsuits on behalf of victims of the original pump and dump scheme. So the only way that we found out about Sater's crimes were the lawyers on the other side of this case, representing the injured parties here from the Fort Lauderdale failed condo experience. and the pump and dump scheme, the $40 million the $40 million that was taken from these people. The lawyers for those people, they were the ones that started to leak this story. But it looked like Sater's entire case and Sater's cooperation as a cooperating witness went on for 11 years. In 2009, he was finally sentenced, because remember, this all happened in 1998. In 2009, he was finally sentenced for, and here's what he got. He got, remember, it's a $40 million security fraud case. He got no jail time. He was not forced to pay any restitution to the victims, and he was fined $25,000. In other words, he walked away. Now, what's really interesting is during the 2015 confirmation hearings of Department of Justice, Loretta Lynch, Attorney General Loretta Lynch, she was asked about the government's cooperation with Felix Sater because she was the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, and that's where Sater's case was adjudicated. So Loretta Lynch knows all this. Orrin Hatch asked her the question. And she said, and here's her quote, "The defendant in question, Felix Sater, provided valuable and sensitive information to the government during the course of his cooperation, which began in or about December 1998. For more than 10 years, he worked with prosecutors from my office, the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, and law enforcement agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation," that's the New York office, "and other law enforcement agencies, providing information crucial to national security and the conviction of 20 individuals, including those responsible for committing massive financial fraud and members of La Cosa Nostra. For that reason, his case was initially sealed." So you know it's true. It's just a fact. It's testimony. It's written testimony, actually. Orrin Hatch asked for the answer to that question in writing. That's why we have it. So now her claim of Sater helping us on issues of national security has been repeated by other judges involved in Sater's case. People who have gone to great lengths to prevent the release of the documents in the Sater case. The judges that have sealed the documents in the Sater case, which are now, available. But for 10 years, 11 years, you couldn't find, you didn't know anything about this guy. That's why he's so, mysterious. And yet he was Trump's senior advisor. He has business cards from the Trump Organization. And guess what period of time he was Trump's senior advisor? These entire 10 years. This is when Trump hooked up with Felix Sater. So it's just, it's just one of those things where you wonder if Felix Sater is still cooperating with the government. And if Donald Trump understands the clock is ticking. Now, you'll hear us talk about, Bayrock Capital. Felix Sater was a co-founder of Bayrock Capital. And Felix Sater partnered with another guy named Tevik Arif, who Trump has testified about in the Fort Lauderdale condo case. This is why I'm saying, a lot of this stuff didn't come out until Trump was under oath and in a deposition scenario. And then he said he knew Tevik, but he didn't know Felix Sater, which is crazy because Felix Sater not only worked with Trump for 10 years, so did Michael Cohen and all these other people that are under investigation right now. But he was in his office. He was actually on the same floor as the Trump Organization, inside the doors of the Trump Organization, with an office next to Donald Trump in the Trump Organization's offices. Now, he does admit to knowing Tevik from Bayrock, who was a former Soviet trade and commerce official from Kazakhstan. Now, Trump and Bayrock partnered together on a lot of different building projects, and Sater was the point man on most of them. Not just the Fort Lauderdale project, but the New York project, Trump Soho. Trump Soho was financed with money from Russia and Kazakhstan. And then there was Trump Fort Lauderdale subsequent to that, and Sater managed that project. And when it collapsed, it triggered the entire deposition and the entire opening up of Felix Sater's security fraud conviction. Now, Trump's work with Bayrock continued on until 2010, and that's when Sater left Bayrock and went to work for Trump full time in Trump's offices. And he put together all kinds of deals and financing for Trump branded buildings. So here, let's put this together very quickly, okay? The federal government knew who Sater was. They knew that he had ties to the criminal underworld. They knew that he had ties to the Soviet Union. They knew that former Soviet Union, and they knew that he had ties to the mafia. They knew that he had a deep and long relationship with Donald Trump. They knew that he played a key role in in Donald Trump's first decade of projects after Atlantic City went bankrupt, and they know that Sater helped him get financing to keep himself afloat. Now, we don't know if the federal government had specific knowledge of all the details of every single transaction, and we don't know how deeply Trump was reliant on capital from Russia and oligarchs and underworld figures that Sater is clearly immersed in and has been, for 11 years, being protected by our government while he does it. But remember Mr. Luria, who wrote the book and was there the night that Sater stabbed the guy when all this happened in 1998. Mr. Luria brokered a $50 million investment in Trump Soho and 3 other Bayrock projects by an Icelandic firm preferred by wealthy Russians. So what we know is Trump was very dependent on Russian money for at least 15 years now. Is it illegal? No. But is he hiding everything? Yes. And if he has nothing to hide, then why is he hiding everything? 47 after.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit randyrhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a diversified media enterprises production. I'm Doug Cunningham.
No, Dr. King always talked about a union. He said the best anti-poverty program he knew was the union.
Activist actor Danny Glover. On Saturday, Glover will join U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders, NAACP President Cornell William Brooks, clergy, and hundreds of Nissan workers for the March on Mississippi. It's a rally and march for a union, as well as for civil rights at Nissan's Canton, Mississippi plant. The workers and their supporters are demanding that Nissan respect workers' rights to vote for a union without fear of retaliation. The workers say that Nissan's anti-union campaign is an effort to intimidate workers into not supporting a union. Senator Sanders, Danny Glover, and NAACP President Brooks say there's a pattern of civil rights abuses, harassment, and intimidation of African-American workers at the Nissan Canton plant who are trying to form a union with the UAW. Senator Sanders says that Nissan has union representation at 42 out of its 45 plants around the world, and the American South should not be treated any differently. The Canton, Mississippi plant makes Nissan Altima, Frontier, Murano, and Titan vehicles. Fight for 15's Mid-South Organizing Committee is suing the Memphis Police Department in federal court for allegedly harassing and trying to intimidate labor protesters and Fight for 15 organizers. The suit says the MPD is conducting illegal political surveillance of protesters. The Mid-South Organizing Committee and its lead organizer, Antonio Cathy, say in their lawsuit that Memphis police engaged in a pattern and practice of various intimidation tactics aimed at discouraging workers from engaging in protected free speech activities. Cathy says Memphis cops told him they had authorization from the president of McDonald's to make arrests at Fight for 15 protests. Police also followed organizers engaged in constitutionally protected protests. IAM Maine Lobstering Union members are buying a wholesaling operation. Financing for the Trenton Bridge Lobster Pound wholesaling operation is coming from the Bank of Labor. IMLU Local 207 President Rocky Alley told the Portland Press Herald that it's been a dream of the union lobstering workers for 2 years. A co-op like this, he says, will help the workers make more money and have stability for generations to come.
Sponsored by Iron Workers Impact, now reserving spots for this year's groundbreaking conference, welcoming contractors to grow their business by networking and attending world-class breakouts. More on this event in San Diego, happening March 19th through the 22nd, is found online at impact-net.org under Events.
WIN is made possible in part by the OPEIU, the Office of Professional Employees International Union.
Workers Independent News is proud to be heard on The Union Edge, Labor's Talk Radio. Live nationwide weekdays noon to 3 p.m. at theunionedge.com.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
The Randy Rhodes Show is brought to you by our partners at ITM Trading. Call them at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and ask for a free gold kit. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844.
So basically what you have here is a man who inherited a great fortune from his daddy, and then he blows it. He blows it in Atlantic City like, a lot of, degenerate gamblers do. No difference here between him and some guy who blows the rent money. It's just the amount that's different. The amount that's on the table. Anyway, he blows it. He can't find any lenders anymore. He can't find anybody to, give him a bank loan. Nobody wants to do business with Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is desperately seeking investment money. He's desperately seeking loans, lenders, somebody to pour money back into the Trump organization, which he has blown apart. And he goes overseas. In the meantime, he hooks up with these guys from Bayrock. Okay, these guys from Bayrock are from Kazakhstan and Russia. And they tell him all this money in Russia, ever since the breakup of the Soviet Union, ever since Vlad was prime minister, not even president. He's been privatizing all the businesses, and he's been handing these huge chunks of change to all of these Russian people, and frankly, they're Vlad's friends, and they'll be your friends too. They love real estate. They love America, and they would love to park their money over here. Why don't we put you guys all together? There's nothing illegal about that. It happened. Except that he hooked up with the Bayrock guy, Sater, who was obviously working for the CIA. It's so interesting because we don't know which side of this Sater is currently on. But what we do know is that when Russia invaded Crimea, everything changed because Donald Trump felt that those sanctions that we placed on Russia would inhibit the free flow of cash he was enjoying from Russia. And he had been working with, his lawyer, Michael Cohen, who had done an enormous amount of business in Russia. He'd been working with Sater and Bayrock and this other guy from Kazakhstan. And they were saying, this is not good. This is not good for our business. This is not good for your business. You have to do something. Now, I don't know if Donald Trump at that moment decided to run for president. These are the things we don't know. But I will tell you this. He could. And I don't know if Donald Trump felt that he couldn't win on his own. And so he told Russia, continue to hack. And I don't know how much he understood about the hacking. And I don't know how much he understood about those bots and cyborgs. But I will tell you, he hired two companies. One in San Antonio, Texas. The other was Mercer's company, Cambridge Analytics, to pump out fake news, which is shady as all hell, and that people in this country were the victim of a huge propaganda campaign. But the illegal part comes here. Did Donald Trump know that Vladimir Putin was hacking? We know he invited him to do it. We know he said.
But it would be interesting to see. I will tell you this.
Yeah.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
So he knew to talk to Russia. I mean, he knew to give a shout out to Russia. He knew to ask them to Now, why would he say something like that? Obviously, he said something like that because he had to know that Russia was doing this. Now, did he agree to, obviously that right there is an admission that it's okay with him. And this is his giant problem now. You could say if he never said that, because he's such a pathological liar. He's such a showboat, that he couldn't help himself. He had to say, I know more than the generals. I got the inside scoop. I know what's going on in Russia. Vladimir Putin couldn't have been nicer. Do you know what I mean? He talked about knowing Vladimir Putin. He talked about, I've spoken to him.
What I would do would be, as an example, I own the Miss Universe. I was in Russia. I was in Moscow recently, and I spoke indirectly and directly with President Putin, who could not have been nicer.
See?
And we had a tremendous success. The show was live from Moscow, and we had a tremendous success there, and it was amazing. But to do well, you have to get the other side to respect you, and he does not respect our president, which is very sad.
He doesn't respect Obama, and he hates Hillary Clinton, Putin does, because they put the sanctions on Russia. And Donald Trump's agreement seems to have been, in 2013, when he went to Russia, that if sanctions were placed on Russia, he would run for president. Now, he wasn't sure. This is speculation. It seems to me that he didn't think he could win by himself. And so he asked Russia to provide opposition research and embarrass Hillary Clinton and embarrass the Democratic Party, the DNC. What happened in reality is not just the voter rolls were hacked and not just the DNC was hacked. The GOP was hacked too. But the Russian government decided only to release the Democratic opposition research to WikiLeaks. And that's where we are right now. And, Donald Trump can't help himself. And that's why there's an investigation into 6 people around Donald Trump right now. 6 people are under investigation. Now, what are the odds of that? What are the chances that the United States government would be investigating 6 people with ties to Russia who all worked on Donald Trump's campaign? Unless Donald Trump didn't think he could win by himself, but promised Vladimir Putin that he would run for president to take the sanctions off. Why was Flynn fired? Because he was talking about taking the sanctions off of Russia. Why was their focus on Donald Trump in the first place? Because he changed the GOP platform and said that he would not provide lethal weapons to Ukraine to defend themselves. He thought that NATO was obsolete, meaning that, the former Soviet satellite countries would never be part of NATO, and that NATO itself was too strong, and he sought to break it up. So all these European nations that are part of a union would be little satellite countries fighting, the invasion by Russia by themselves, like Georgia, like Ukraine, Crimea, this stuff. So he just can't keep his mouth shut. He keeps, this is the crazy thing. Donald Trump leaves a trail of crumbs like Hansel and Gretel as he goes into the witch's house. So in this way, it is a witch hunt because we're following the breadcrumbs to the witch's house. And the witch is Vladimir Putin. And Donald is leaving a clear path to Vlad's door by saying these stupid things. It does remind you of The Godfather. And he is, I used to say that George Bush was the Fredo of his family. But Donald Trump is like James Caan. Do you know he can't resist the fight? He's got to beat up everybody all the time. He's Sonny. And he's been like this since he's a little boy, which is why his parents sent him to prep school. And then when he got kicked out of prep school, they sent him to a military-themed prep school because the real prep school kicked him out. He's Sonny. He really is. He's that hot-headed kid that grew up to be Sonny. That's who he is in the Corleone clan. So it's very, very strange. But it's very simple. Donald needed money. He couldn't get it here. He went over there. He took the money. No problem. Then they started complaining. The money's going to dry up, Donald. Sanctions. You better do something. He was like, I want to build a tower. Yeah? Well, I'll tell you what. You're not even going to have the money to build a tower. You need to get these sanctions off. You need to work your government. Well, I can't work the government. It's Obama and Hillary. Well, then run against them. Well, I don't know if I could win without, I don't know if I could win. We'll help you. See what I mean? It's not that complicated. And now 6 people are under investigation. And for what? A little bit of money. And it's a beautiful day. All right.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randy Rhodes Show.
Man, I love herky jerky. It is just the best jerky you'll ever put in your mouth. They are the best purveyors of jerky I have ever found, but you have to go online at herkyjerky.com to sample and try this amazing big protein, big flavor, big packs, little carbs snack. Now, you know, the bacon is incredible. It's just a big slab. You put it on BLTs, you use it in salads, munch it right out of the bag. I've shopped for jerky everywhere, from supermarkets to gourmet jerky shops, but herky jerky is the best. And this is not a 3-ounce frou-frou bag. These are big, beautiful, nearly 1-pound bags of fresh, delicious, perfectly spiced jerky that bites and chews like homemade jerky should. Now, for the month of March, all the Randy listeners will get a surprise. If you order 2 packs or more of anything, they'll send you a sample pack of maybe elk, maybe venison, maybe buffalo. It could be anything, but it will be a surprise. All you need to do is type in the comments section, buy a stinking podcast. herkyjerky.com.
Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
My administration wants to work with members of both parties to promote clean air and clean water.
Debunking Trump's environmental bunk in his first address to Congress.
Scott Pruitt is facing new questions about his email and his honesty.
New emails show EPA administrator lied to Congress. Plus,
what a crazy, spectacular, unbelievably warm day that we had here across southeastern Wisconsin.
Record February heat wave brings early spring across the U.S.
All of those early warning signs and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Everything that is broken in our country can be fixed.
Not everything, Mr. President. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, Donald Trump discussed quite a bit of things that had to do with the environment during his first speech to Congress, although in this case, that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, that's actually quite true. His first formal speech to a joint session of Congress on Tuesday night had zero mention of climate change, did not mention the booming U.S. renewable energy industry, and it was pretty much empty of specifics on energy policy. But President Trump did claim he will promote clean air and clean water, but his actions have been the opposite of that.
Imagine that.
He actually touted rolling back regulations that protect the water supply, especially in coal country.
We're going to stop the regulations that threaten the future and livelihood of our great coal miners.
Now that sounds great as long as you don't know that energy experts universally say coal's real problem is that it can't compete against renewables and natural gas anymore, and that repealing regulations won't help revive the coal industry. Trump also didn't tell Americans that his federal budget proposal reportedly slashes the already underfunded Environmental Protection Agency's budget by a quarter. Trump ignored that the booming U.S. renewable energy industry has created millions of jobs, but instead touted temporary construction jobs from building controversial pipelines.
We have cleared the way for the construction of the Keystone and Dakota Access pipelines, thereby creating tens of thousands of jobs. And I've issued a new directive that new American pipelines be made with American steel.
Well, hey, there you go. He may be building these new pipelines, but at least they're going to bring us American jobs with American steel.
Nope. Trump did not order the use of American-made steel. He just ordered a study that will look into maybe getting to do that eventually.
And as I understand, all of the steel for these pipelines has already been created, and it's been created in places like Mexico
and India.
Exactly.
And those pipelines will generate less than 4,000 temporary jobs during construction and less than 100 permanent jobs.
Well, we're dealing with alternate facts now, so let's just go with tens of thousands of jobs and don't ask so many questions.
Trump also didn't mention in his speech that on Tuesday he did order the EPA to undo a new clean water rule that would have limited the dumping of chemical and industrial waste in the drinking water supplies of nearly 1/3 of all Americans. That rule was formally called the Waters of the United States rule. It was officially finalized last year, so they can't just throw it out. But the EPA will begin the process of revising it. Speaking of the EPA, some of the emails of the new EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt have been released, the ones that he exchanged with oil industry executives back when he was Attorney General of Oklahoma. The emails show Pruitt had a very cozy and collaborative relationship with the oil industry, especially while he was suing the EPA. And this week,
documents recently obtained by Fox 25 indicate his statement was a lie.
Now, the Oklahoma Attorney General's office has confirmed that Pruitt used a private email account to conduct state business while Attorney General, contrary to his testimony to the U.S. Senate.
Lock him up.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate on Wednesday confirmed Montana Republican Representative Ryan Zinke to head the Interior Department, managing the public's resources. 16 Democratic senators voted with Republicans to confirm Zinke, who portrays himself as a conservationist and pledges to block attempts to sell off public lands. But Zinke is also a climate science denier who advocates for more fossil fuel extraction. Finally, January 2017 was the third hottest January on record for the entire planet, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And for February, the global data isn't in yet, but the United States in February saw an unusual heat wave that crushed all-time high February temperature records in cities ranging from the Midwest to the Northeast and bringing an early spring 20 days early here in the U.S., according to the U.S. Geological Survey.
Hey, it's nice golf weather. You know anybody who builds golf courses?
Let me think about that.
For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find us and follow us on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
We're having a heat wave, a tropical heat wave. The temperature's rising, it isn't surprising.
This has been the Green News Report on the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randy Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
The soon-to-be commissioned Gerald R. Ford, USS. What a place. It really feels like a place. You stand on that deck and you feel like you're standing on a very big piece of land, but this is better than land.
Now, that may have sounded asinine, but those are actually the words to the Navy fight song. What a place. It really feels like a place. You stand on that deck and you feel like you're standing on a very big piece of land. But this is better than land. Go, Navy!
I'm the commander guy. Yes, sir.
Turns out, Trump's Attorney General, who was also a former advisor to his campaign, as well as the first person in the Senate to declare support for Trump, met with the Russian ambassador while Russia was also allegedly engaged in a campaign of cyber attacks to interfere in the election. Now, this is problematic for a number of reasons. For one thing, Sessions was asked about this very topic under oath during his Senate confirmation hearing and gave an answer that now looks like it was false.
If there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I not have communications with the Russians.
Of course, at the time, it seemed believable enough. Surely a senator from Alabama named Jefferson Beauregard Sessions would remember meeting some Russians. Now, we don't get a lot of Ruskies down to this neck of the woods. Can I get you some lemonade? You must be awfully hot underneath that big old furry hair.
Yeah, everybody's talking about it. The whole town's talking about it. It is unbelievable. And you know, the sick, sad part is that Trump probably didn't think that he could win on his own. And the reason why he ran in the first place is because the Russian oligarch money was drying up because of the sanctions that we placed on Russia after they invaded Crimea. This is probably when Trump decided, all right, I'll do it. But the Russians said, don't worry, you can win. And he said, I don't know. And they said, we have your back. We have your back. We know what to do. And it's really sad because now you have the Director of National Intelligence issuing the report, Russia's Influence Campaign targeting the 2016 U.S. presidential election. And in it, it describes all the cyber hacks, all the attacks, how it started, why it started, what Vlad wanted out of it. And of course, what Vlad wanted out of it was to embarrass and hurt Hillary Clinton because Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama put the sanctions on Russia, which was crippling Putin. And the only thing that Trump had in common with Putin at that time was the sanctions were crippling his business too because he was being financed by Russian oligarchs. And there was nothing illegal about that portion of it. It became illegal when Donald Trump threw in with Vlad and said, I don't know if I could win on my own. And they said, don't worry, we got this. That's when it became illegal. And now you have 6 people under investigation. His first foreign policy advisor, Carter Page, in the oil and gas business in Russia. His lawyer, Michael Cohen, 10 years as lawyer, oil and gas business in Russia. Paul Manafort, okay, his campaign manager, oil and gas business in Ukraine and pro-Russian lobbyist for Viktor Yanukovych, who fled to Russia after Vlad was able to invade Crimea, starting the sanctions. Stupid man, Manafort. Michael Flynn, I'll take the sanctions off. Don't worry, we got this. Lied about that conversation. And he didn't have to because he was in a position to actually then be legitimately reaching out to Russian Ambassador Kislyak to discuss things. He didn't have to lie, but he did lie about the sanctions, and he lied about it to Mike Pence, who has an AOL account and doesn't understand hacking. Who knows? And now you've got just Jeff Beauregard Sessions under investigation. Same thing. Lied to the Senate, his own colleagues, his own friends, in his own stomping ground. Voluntarily perjured himself. Al Franken, I promise you, was given that question. I promise you. He was given that question because Al Franken's line of questioning to Jeff Sessions had to do with the Marion 3, had to do with whether or not Jeff Sessions was forthcoming about civil rights prosecutions when he was Attorney General in Alabama, and how he stretched the truth, and how he really did go after the Marion 3 and accused them of voter fraud, registering dead people. Same old thing, right? And that's what Al's line of questioning focused on. And then all of a sudden he asked a question about, all right, so, and if you see the whole thing, you see Al's like, all right, this is ridiculous, but it seems like there's a story that Donald Trump did X, and so if it's true, what will you do? And he voluntarily perjures himself. He says, I've been called a surrogate, and I'm not aware of anybody in the campaign talking to anybody. It's a lie. It's an obvious, provable lie. So now Sessions is under investigation, and so is Roger Stone, who claims he's been poisoned by polonium. Now, why would Roger Stone, I mean, I realize he's loopy, but why would he pick polonium as the reason that he fainted on the beach running? Why did he say polonium? instead of dehydration? Why did he go on one of these conspiracy shows, Alex Jones show, and tell Alex Jones that he was poisoned by polonium, and that the CDC had taken a blood sample when he showed up at a hospital dehydrated after running on the beach in Miami in 90-degree weather and not drinking enough fluids? He dehydrated. But why the CDC would then send his blood off to be tested and tell him he's been poisoned by polonium? Because Roger Stone knows all spies have to die. And Roger Stone believes that he's a spy for Russia. That's why, and he's under investigation too. It's so they're so bizarro world in their crazy world that they live in, and the only real truth is that Donald Trump was dependent on foreign oligarch mafioso money to finance himself after he gambled away his daddy's business in Atlantic City, and it's just not that complicated. But now you got Roger Stone under investigation, Carter Page is under investigation, Michael Cohen is under investigation, Manafort's under investigation, Flynn is under investigation, and now Beauregard is. It's just, and it's all because they cannot tell the truth. These are all self-inflicted wounds. Now the DNI report says, in trying to influence the U.S. election, we assess with high confidence that Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election, the consistent goals of which were to undermine public faith in the United States democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. We further assess Putin and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump when it appeared to Moscow that Secretary Clinton was likely to win the election. The Russian influence campaign then focused on undermining her expected presidency. Except Donald had another arrow in his quiver. I'm sorry I gave you a mental picture of his quiver. It's like quiverful. Ooh, I hate that word. But okay, so here's the other thing he had in his arsenal. He hooks up with some guy in San Antonio who does a voter suppression effort on the internet. This guy was able to get analytics of Hillary supporters, and he was able to target them with the pedophile story and the pizza story, Pizzagate, and they made a South Park meme with Hillary Clinton's voice saying these kids are super predators, and depressed the vote for Hillary Clinton in certain blue geographical must-win areas for her and him. And so they were able to suppress the vote just enough. That's why Donald Trump didn't think he was going to win. Vladimir Putin told him he wasn't going to win. Everybody, all the polling was correct. Hillary Clinton did receive 3 to 5 million more votes than he did. The polling wasn't wrong. It was correct. But this voter suppression effort was at work and succeeded at the last minute. And a lot of African American voters sat it out. In Wisconsin, in Michigan, and in Ohio. Pennsylvania. Wisconsin, Michigan, and what's the other one? Pennsylvania. So that's what happened. Now, all this stuff's in the homework section. All of it is. And I suggest that you read it and memorize it so that you don't have to get deep in the weeds with these crazy, trolls that have fallen victim to the propaganda campaign waged by a foreign government against them. Just saying. It's pretty simple. All right, let's go to JR in L.A.
Hey, Randy, how you doing, man?
Hey.
Love you all day long and every time you speak.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, how do we convince people to stop being stupid?
Well, listen, if
embrace facts, because I don't see it happening so far.
No, And you won't. And there's always going to be, and this is the sad truth, and this is what everybody knows who runs for office, especially national office. There will always be 30%, a third of this country, 33% of this country, that will they will consistently vote against their own best interest based on the authoritarian figure that steps up to the microphone. As long as that person can come up and step up to the microphone and say, I got this. Don't you worry. You don't have to think about it anymore. Trump also had the added entertainment value of being, a P.T. Barnum type, a guy who was very good on television, a guy who, was made legitimate by a TV show that ran for 14 freaking years. People don't realize The Apprentice ran for 14 years. Of course, it was only number 1 in its first season, and then it was number 67. But people saw him at a conference table wearing a suit and tie and firing people. And so he became authoritarian to them. And when he stepped up to the microphone to make his play for the presidency, they thought, I know him. He's a businessman. They decided all these things about him. None of that. I mean, he ran a boutique business. That's what he ran. He's not exactly the CEO of ExxonMobil. Rex Tillerson is, okay? He's right. So he doesn't know what he's doing. But he is beholden to these oligarchs. He needed their money. And again, there was nothing illegal about it until he actually threw in with Putin, until he actually said, go ahead and hack, and invited them to hack and made it clear that he was pro-hacking. And until he started doing business, with Manafort and Flynn and Sessions and all that, right? So there's always going to be a third of the country that no matter how simple you make it, no matter how you just lay it out and go, look, the guy needed money and he couldn't get money from the U.S., so he went abroad. And it was all okay until the sanctions. And then, right. And then he, right. And they'll either believe you or they won't, but those are true facts.
No, I agree with you. Oddly enough, I can't add much to the conversation, but I do have to ask you, I guess, 2 other questions. Number 1, if we can't fight them through facts, how do you think we can fight them through influence? Is there any way we can push it? I mean, I try and send out stuff like, listen to Randi. Go ahead and look at MSNBC. Go ahead and look at this and whatever. That does not seem to work.
No, of course it doesn't.
Yeah. So okay. Then the next question. If it doesn't work, then is there a way that we can possibly make it so that it's more, edible, more fun?
Yeah, snackable. Snackable, right? Something that they could just, have a little bite of and get. Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Light facts or something?
Yeah, facts light. No, here's the thing. Again, I'm going to say this again and again and again. There will always be a third of this country that will continue to vote against their own best interest based on the person that tells them exactly what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. Okay? They will just go with the person who emotionally appeals to their need instead of their intellectual urge to know what they have to know. And you could just write them off and just know that people on our side are working for equal justice across the board for all people.
I can't write them off because half of them are like family. I mean, what am I going to do? I mean, I gotta stay in there and fight the good fight.
Well, then, like I said, make it very simple. Learn the story I just told you. He needed money. He couldn't get a bank to lend him anything after Atlantic City, gambled away everything. So he went overseas, and the Russians came to him and bought all his stuff, his apartments, and made him a very rich man. Then the sanctions came after Putin invaded Crimea, and his money was going to dry up. So he decided that he would run for president, but he didn't think he could win on his own, so he took help from Russia. That's the whole story.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandyRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Hey, Trump is in the White House. Gold. Yes, gold. It really has the opportunity to do super well. That's definitely one good reason to own it. But did you know that there are a lot of benefits to owning gold? When you have gold in your physical possession, it provides safety. It's a hedge against inflation, U.S. dollar turmoil, and presidential instability. Gold has so much historical precedence as real money that the central banks that run the global financial system buy gold in staggering quantities year after year. Many financial service providers agree that gold is a great diversification tool for everyone's portfolio. If you want to learn more about the benefits of owning gold, just call my friends at ITM Trading at 1-888-OWN-GOLD. Whether you want to own physical gold in your possession or put some in your IRA, call ITM today at 1-888-OWN-GOLD. ITM specializes in all types of gold and silver coins and bars. Call ITM Trading. Get your free gold kit at 1-888-OWN-GOLD. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
Hello, Progressive Voices tune-in listeners. I'm Casey Hobbs.
And I'm Shane Mason, and we're the hosts of Nurse Talk Radio.
Here's what we're talking about this week.
Casey, last week registered nurses won their tentative collective bargaining agreement with the California Nurses Association and National Nurses United.
With the result that nurses achieve significant economic improvements, protection of health coverage and their pensions, along with patient care contract protections.
These nurses have been without a pay raise for over 6 years, so this settlement is huge in many, many ways. One of the key provisions is that there's no mandatory overtime anymore. When you have an 8 or 12-hour shift, you go into work and know that they can't make you stay in on your job any longer than you were committed to doing.
So, Deborah, as we know, most in our profession are in it because they love it, and they're patient advocates. Do you think hospitals understand and honor that?
Some people honor that, but when you look at the profits that Kaiser makes, the profits that Sutter, the UC system, the Dignity system, all of these healthcare systems make, the huge profits they make, yet they pay their nurses and their healthcare workers very, very poorly, only goes to prove that they really don't value the work that they do other than as a means to make more profit. And they can't replace us with robots.
No.
I mean, it's not for lack of trying,
True.
but they actually need people that are constantly using their professional judgment for the patients and evaluate the medications. You can't do that with a robot.
Check out our show at nursetalksite.com and listen every Saturday and Sunday right here on Progressive Voices.
Hi, we're back, and everything is possible again. Isn't it beautiful? Well, if you want to keep it this way, buy a stinking podcast. Oh, yes, you have to buy a stinking podcast. And you get that at randyrhodes.com, where we're open all day, all night long. randyrhodes.com. Get your stinking podcast.
The Randy Rhodes Show is live on randyrhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or progressivevoices.com now.
Coretta Scott King also wrote to the Judiciary Committee about the Sessions nomination in 1986. And this is what she wrote. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to express my strong opposition to the nomination of Jefferson Sessions for federal district judgeship for the Southern District of Alabama. My long-standing commitment, which I shared with my husband Martin, to protect and enhance the rights of Black Americans, rights which include equal access to the democratic process, compels me to testify today. Civil rights leaders, including my husband and Albert Turner, have fought long and hard to achieve free and unfettered access to the ballot box. Mr. Sessions has used the awesome power of his office to chill the free exercise of the vote by black citizens in the district he now seeks to serve as a federal judge. This simply cannot be allowed to happen. Mr. Sessions' conduct as U.S. Attorney, from his politically motivated voting fraud prosecutions to his indifference toward criminal violations of civil rights laws, indicates that he lacks the temperament, fairness, and judgment to be a federal judge. It has been a long uphill struggle to keep alive the vital legislation that protects the most fundamental right to vote. A person who has exhibited so much hostility to the enforcement of those laws.
The senator is reminded that it is a violation of Rule 19 of the standing rules of the Senate to impute to another senator or senators any conduct or motive unworthy or becoming a senator.
Mr. President, I don't think I quite understand. I'm reading a letter from Coretta Scott King to the Judiciary Committee from 1986 that was admitted into the record. I'm simply reading what she wrote about what the nomination of Jeff Sessions to be a federal court judge meant and what it would mean in history for her.
This is a reminder, not pertinent necessarily what you just shared. However, you stated that
he doesn't know
a
what
sitting
he's doing.
senator is a disgrace to the Department of Justice.
I think that may have been Senator Kennedy.
And this.
It is through. Although I would be glad to repeat it in my own words.
The rule applies.
I love this girl telling him.
To imputing conduct or motive through any form or voice to a sitting form of words includes quotes, articles, or other materials.
So, quoting Senator Kennedy, calling then nominee Sessions a disgrace is a violation of Senate rules. It was certainly not in 1986.
In the opinion of the chair, it is.
So can I continue with Coretta Scott King's letter?
The senator may continue.
A person who has exhibited so much hostility to the enforcement of those laws and thus to the exercise of those rights by black people should not be elevated to the federal bench. The irony of Mr. Sessions' nomination is that, if confirmed, he will be given life tenure for doing with a federal prosecution what the local sheriffs accomplished 20 years ago with clubs and cattle prods.
After reading the letter, Senator Warren continued speaking, but she was again interrupted, this time by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Mr. President.
They are.
Mr. President.
The Majority Leader.
The senators impugn the motives and conduct of our colleague from Alabama as warned by the chair. Senator Warren, quote, said Senator Sessions has used the awesome power of his office to chill the free exercise of the vote by black citizens. I call the senator to order under the provisions of Rule 19.
Mr. President.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Mr. President, I am surprised that the words of Coretta Scott King are not suitable for debate in the United States Senate.
Senator Warren is now prohibited from speaking for the remainder of the debate over Sessions' confirmation.
Wow. Stunning, huh? Hi, Amy. Stunning. That was just an amazing moment. And you know what? Coretta Scott King was right about Jeff Sessions in 1986. And Elizabeth Warren was right to go to history and to read from the congressional record what was said about Sessions in 1986. And for some strange reason, reading the congressional record in Congress is a violation of Rule 19. But the best part is that the man presiding that night, Senator Daines, had no clue about process. No clue. He had a girl standing in front of him. And then, of course, Mitch McConnell rolls out of bed and he gets all dressed and goes up to the Capitol Hill. And it was shocking. But now Sessions is under investigation, too. And, you know, you can't really fault people who are not conservatives, who are not members of the GOP voting bloc in the House and Senate for being right, because they were. That's a fact. We tried to stop his nomination. We are, I shouldn't say we because I'm not a party person, but people of good conscience who understood Jeff Sessions' proclivity to lie and to take away civil rights from people instead of enforcing the civil rights of people as an attorney general, spoke out forcefully back in the day to keep him off the federal bench. And it turns out the Democrats were in the minority and they couldn't stop it. And then he got confirmed. And now he's under investigation by the FBI. And he's head of the freaking Justice Department. What do you do now? Want me to answer it? All right. You get a special prosecutor. Oh, yeah, that ran. That's right. I forgot. Don't forget, okay? Keep these things in mind. Obviously, Jeff Sessions cannot investigate Jeff Sessions. He can't. It's kind of like Scott Pruitt saying that he was suing the EPA 13 times, so now make him head of the EPA so he could be the plaintiff and the prosecutor and the judge and the jury. What could go wrong? You understand? They think that they're playing this very sophisticated game of chess by putting people who sue and people who are compromised into those positions that, would allow them to escape investigation or escape prosecution because, Pruitt obviously was suing the EPA and Pruitt is now the head of the EPA. So now Pruitt is suing himself. Same thing with Donald Trump's postal building, okay? He's got a lease from the GSA for the post office, for the new hotel in D.C., except that the lease says that no member of the government can hold the lease. But now he's the lessee and the lessor. Same thing with Sessions. Sessions is now under investigation by the FBI. But remember, Sessions is Comey's boss. So they think they're very smart. But a special prosecutor would clear all this smartness up. Okay, you get it? They thought they were being too cute by half. All right, Brother David.
Putin, he was having trouble. What a sad, sad story. Needed U.S. huckster to bring oligarchy glory. Where, oh, where was he? Enter KGB. They hacked around once they had found with help of GOP. And now it's bring time for Twitler and Vladimir. Orwell was prophet for now. All bets are off with Sessions' case. Their way leads to disaster race. Bring time for Twitler and Vladimir. Streep Davis 2020, or it'll be nuclear winter for everything else. Bring time for Twitler. Okay, sweetheart.
All right. Okay. All right.
Hi, sister.
Hey, brother.
It's been a week.
Yes.
Month. Year. Millennium.
This was supposed to be his week, though. He gave his little, state. What was it? His little joint session of Jeff or something. I forget what they. And he was doing so well. You even had the CNN punditry sitting there going, very presidential, very, very, very. Oh my. And then he freaking, lies. Jeff, it's just like, wow.
Just flat out. Just right there. Verifiable in front of our lying eyes.
Well, recuse me.
It's huge, I'm telling you. It's huge.
Huge, yes.
Bigly recusing himself.
Yeah.
Hey, chat room, tell everybody, YouTube, like, subscribe, buy a stinking podcast.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. By the way, does anybody know what it means when you have 1 million hearts on Twitter?
Oh, that's pretty good, Randy.
On Periscope.
That's
That's excellent.
What does that mean? What do I get for that? Where's my prize? What do I get? Do I get a prize from the first shelf, or do I get the big giant one on the? I mean,
Paige and Carol Merrill.
Does anybody ever get that prize? I don't know.
I don't know, but that is great. That's
we're very
fabulous.
close. I think we have 900,000.
We hit the million.
Oh, we hit a million? We hit it
just during this show.
Of course you did. Vive la Randy Stance. Gorgeous girdles for everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so we hit 1 million hearts on Periscope. What does that get me? I want to
respect.
No. I want to know what the prize is. I want a prize. I deserve a prize. I want to know what is the prize for 1 million hearts on Periscope. Because I looked, somebody called and said, she's about to hit 1 million. She's about to hit 1 million. John called. And so I looked. It was 900.
It's like 998,000 and
then we hit 1 million.
Yes.
In the last couple of minutes. But what's the prize? What do I get? All right, Jody in Chicago.
Hi, Randy.
Hi.
Thanks for taking my call. I listen all the time. I love you so much. But I had to endure for the first 5 or 10 minutes of your show, you call me a loser.
Oh, you're an AOL user, aren't you?
The email account, I don't know. I've had it for years, and I just didn't change it. But, wow, I will now,
So
I guess.
you're the people that send me the help tickets, right? You're the ones that say, I can't figure out the podcast, and a help ticket.
No, you know what? I did go on iTunes to get your podcast. But you're not on iTunes. I can only get a sample, so I did figure out I had to go to your website.
Yes, that's right. You can only get a sample because we're behind a paywall, which means you need a password.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I figured it out. I didn't have to call you. I didn't send you a ticket. I figured it out. But now I'm good to my email account, but I'll work on it.
Okay.
But I still love you, and I'm calling.
It's not dial-up, is it? You don't still get the ding thing.
No, you didn't even have that. Come on, no.
Wow. All right. No, let me make it feel better. You know how old I am? Okay. I remember CompuServe and Prodigy.
I was on Prodigy. Yes.
I was on Prodigy too, and I thought the only two people in the world that were on Prodigy were me and my dad. And I still remember my handle was like XXX13BGU.
I think I was in were you ever in chat rooms with that?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I never went. My dad and I were. I was convinced that my dad and I were the only two people in the world on Prodigy, and it was dial up, and we would send emails back and forth to each other. And then my dad started telling me soon. There you go.
I missed it.
Every time I hear that, I think of my dad. I still do. I still think of my dad. I go, oh, look, an email from my dad. But, I think I was XX19BBU something, and my father, 18, and my father was 19, his was the next number.
Okay.
Yeah. But and then my dad called and he said, soon they're going to you'll be able to shop online. And I remember, I don't remember what retailer it was, but the very first retailer that was on Prodigy, I remember trying to get into their website, not knowing what a website really was, and the dial-up connection, it was like the page would load from the top down, like it took 4 days to get the whole page. It was so amazing. And just think about that. That's like the mid-90s, and look where we are now.
I know. It's amazing. Even phones. I used to sell cell phones in the late 90s, and when they used to tell me, the big honchos would go to their meetings, and they come back and say, Jody, pretty soon, we're going to be able to, open our garage doors from our cell phones. We're able to shop on our cell phones. And I thought, you're crazy, but
here we are. Now, the question I have, being the old bag that I am, is what does 1 million hearts on Periscope get you? Because we just got
mail.
Thank you. Mark in Vancouver.
Hi, Randy. I spoke with you the other day, and I think I failed miserably to make my points.
Oh.
And the reason
this is a do-over.
Yeah, that's what I'd like. Here's the thing. it's very difficult to explain something when somebody is constantly jumping in, trying to have a discussion. And what I would like to do is lay out for you the case as to why people are not supporting the Democrats, why they did not show up by the millions in November, and
It's
why
called voter
Trump
suppression.
Now, well, Randy, since 2008, the Democratic Party has lost over 1,000 seats, about 1,040 seats at all levels of government.
That's what
and
they
I'm
say.
I'm glad that Trump is failing as president because he's building a lot of resistance. But no matter how badly the GOP does, the Democrats keep losing to him.
Yeah,
After
the party is an antique. I mean, the party is a complete shadow of what it was. It was, the Democratic Party that I thought I could be part of was the Roosevelt era. Was
exactly.
My mom, grew up. FDR was her president, and my mom grew up just crazy about him, and JFK to a lesser extent, but only because he was handsome. But but FDR was like the epitome. He was what I thought the Democratic Party was. Now remember, in the 90s, what happened was the Democratic Party decided to triangulate, and it moved to the right. And it became the DLC. It became the Democratic Leadership Committee. And that was like, oh, well, we have to play footsie with corporate America, and we have to, do this, and we have to do that, and we're still paying for it. Yeah, we're still paying for it. I mean, so I'm not a member of that party. Like I said, I've said this a million times. If I could figure out a way where I didn't need to amend the Constitution, which I do, in order to get rid of the Electoral College, which you'd have to amend the Constitution to accomplish, and create a viable third party in this country, I would do it.
Okay, Randy, what is the purpose of the superdelegates?
I know. I think it's ridiculous. It's so because they.
Let me answer that.
I think that's horrible.
The superdelegates are there to suppress the liberals.
So that's what I'm saying. It's voters.
So that's by another. Liberal, I mean real Democrats.
Right.
Real Democrats.
That's what I'm saying. So there's many forms of voter suppression, and that is one of them. The superdelegates throw their hat to a candidate prior to even the first debate. So how legit is that? It's not. The party is a disaster. I don't disagree with you. And if that's what you were trying to get across the other day, you sure failed miserably because I agree with that.
Okay. Well, the problem is they have.
So now you've won. Just be happy. Okay. Now you can feel good about yourself all weekend. Now you can replay this in your head all weekend and go, "I won."
Will this be on YouTube?
Yes, it will.
Permanently?
Yes, it will.
Hey, awesome!
All right.
Share it with all your friends.
Hey, Mark in Vancouver's friends. This really is Mark, and he really won this argument. He won. He was so tenacious. He had to have a do-over to do it, but sloppy seconds is better than nothing.
Absolutely. Now, can I explain to you what's really going on with this run-up to a war for profit in Russia?
No. 46 after.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randy Rhodes Show.
Buy a stinking podcast.
I'm David Pakman, host of The David Pakman Show on the Progressive Voices channel. Check out this clip from my show. Donald Trump has reportedly rejected an intelligence report on his majority Muslim nation immigration ban, basically because it just didn't go along with what he thought, which is that it'll improve national security, which we all knew was actually not going to happen. Compiled by the Department of Homeland Security, this report given to the Trump White House said that if you ban all of the citizens of 7 predominantly Muslim countries from coming to the United States, that it's not an effective way of stopping terrorists from coming to the U.S. because, quote, the country of citizenship of an individual is unlikely to be a reliable indicator of potential terrorist activity. Well, yeah. This report given to the Trump White House found that in the last 6 years, foreign-born U.S. residents who were inspired to participate in terror acts had actually come from 26 different countries. However, only 2 of those countries, Iraq and Somalia, are among the top 10 origin countries for foreign-born individuals engaged in terror. And there have been 0 successful terror attacks perpetrated by citizens of any country on the list on U.S. soil since 9/11. And of course, most of the 9/11 terrorists from Saudi Arabia, which isn't on the list at all. Also, the report found that more than half of the 82 people, quote, primarily based in the United States who had been killed while engaging in acts of terrorism were born in the United States of America. These are facts. I've been talking about them for a long time. The Trumpists don't seem to want to hear it. So how did the White House and Trump respond to this report? I don't think you'll be shocked to hear that they dismissed the entire thing as poorly researched and politically motivated. A senior administration official said, quote, "The president asked for an intelligence assessment. This is not the intelligence assessment that the president asked for." That's a CEO answer, Pat, which is if you're a CEO and you get data that doesn't confirm your preconceived notions, you ask someone to change the data to reflect your reality. And that's what Trump wants here. He wants reports that reflect his political reality, which is not reality as we know it.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that Trump and company, people in his administration like Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller, are laymen on the topic of national security. So you'd think they would just kind of defer to people in the intelligence community,
and
people in their own department.
Think they also wouldn't be on the National Security Council.
Right, that too. And also defer to people in their own Department of Homeland Security. But this is never about keeping Americans safe. This is about fulfilling a campaign promise. And at the core, I mean, it's pretty xenophobic.
It's almost like Trump is clueless and unqualified to be president. If only we had national debates that might have helped us figure that out. I don't know, that would have been useful. Every time I hear that Donald Trump opined about something in a way that makes him sound completely clueless, I'm reminded that he's the same guy who said this just a few days ago. This is my new go-to.
You know what uranium is, right? It's a thing called nuclear weapons and other things. Like lots of things are done with uranium, including some bad things.
Yeah. Do you know what my favorite part about that is? He's kind of being patronizing when he says it, as if he's like educating someone else about what uranium is.
Yelling fake news at CNN when you don't like what they say is bad. Yelling fake at intelligence agencies when people's lives depend on their work is worse than bad. A more general headline for this story would be, Trump rejects anything that doesn't corroborate what he already believes to be true. And that's incredibly scary for a president to be doing. You've been listening to part of the David Pakman Show on the Progressive Voices channel. For full audio and video podcasts, interviews, and more, go to davidpakman.com and check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The David Pakman Show.
The Randy Rhodes Show is brought to you by our partners at ITM Trading. Call them at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and ask for a free gold kit. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
The Randy Rhodes Air Force. The Randy Rhodes Show is live on randyrhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or progressivevoices.com now.
Were you jealous of the size of the crowds at Trump's inauguration?
I was there.
I know you were there.
I was the guy trying to put the.
You tried to put the poncho on.
The poncho.
Yeah, we noticed that actually. Yeah. You know what? When you're president, you have a poncho handler. When you're out of office, you're on your own.
You're on your own. That's right.
I was looking at Dick Cheney while that was happening. He seemed to really be enjoying that poncho moment.
Yeah, helping me with the poncho.
Well, he wasn't exactly helping you as so much as he was glaring at you while it was happening. You know, Jeb Bush, as I mentioned, is a guy that I'm friendly with. I have a relationship with Jeb.
So do I.
We email from time to time. He was very kind to be a part of something I did for the Emmys last year. I wonder, because I was thinking about it with my little brother, like if a guy was saying things about my little brother, I'd want to kill him. I'd want to beat him up. Did you get angry and have just that kind of a reaction?
No.
No. You don't care about Jeb?
I care about
He says he cares about Jeb, but it's politics. You know what I mean? You want the? He wants the answer.
I had been in a number of campaigns, and pretty well used to all that stuff.
It goes with the territory?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay. All right. That's
it. You all right
well,
now?
I was saying because it was a nice moment. with he likes his brother.
So I got to tell you, this is a strange moment for me, because this is a moment where you realize that George Bush wasn't really the bottom of the barrel, that it could get worse, that it could be. This is a man who crashed our economy. 4 airplanes made U-turns over the most secure space in our entire country, New York and Washington, D.C., on a sunny morning on a Tuesday on September 11, 2001, and started 2 wars, lowered taxes, and gave us a debt that we'll be paying off for the rest of our lives, our kids' lives, and our grandkids' lives. And he's not the worst. It was a very strange moment for me. I got to tell you, it's like, should I watch Kimmel? Should I not watch Kimmel? Then after the Oscars, I said, okay, I'm going to watch Kimmel. And then I watch Kimmel, and then he has Bush on, and I'm like, I can't watch Kimmel. So it's like Bill Maher. It's like that. You know why? Because there's nothing on Friday night. There's nothing on at 10 o'clock on Friday night. And so, and I just, please. You know how it is. Right? Howard watches me all the time because Howard goes, is real time on? And I go, oh, come on. Do we have to? He goes, come on. There's nothing on. There's nothing on. It's like everybody signs off. Even Don Lemon isn't there. Do you know what I mean? Like they'll play Finding Jesus.
That's right.
Right? I mean, they'll play Finding Jesus, and MSNBC's into Lock Up Raw. Although I very rarely watch MSNBC. Very rarely.
They should have this show on.
Something. Put Joy Reid on an endless loop. She's fabulous. She's the only reason to watch MSNBC, I think, is, AM Joy. I love that show. But honest to God, it's always on CNN. And then when CNN goes to, like, Finding Jesus, I got to go watch, HBO. It sucks for me.
Sucks for me.
Yeah, it does. It sucks for him. I don't understand what the thing is. I don't understand what it is. For the life of me. I never get booked on MSNBC. I used to live, it's crazy. And Bill Maher, same thing, as if they don't know we're here. It's just, and I got to the point where I just don't even care anymore. But to watch it is to rub your nose in the not caring. Do you know what I mean? Plus, I'm like a little buzzed at 10 o'clock on Friday, so I get a little outraged. All right, Paul in Woodinville.
Until this day, I did not know it was Benzini all along.
Barzini.
Barzini.
So who's Barzini to you? Who do you think is Barzini?
I don't know.
It's
Felix
Sater.
Is it?
Yes. Barzini is Felix Sater. Okay, here's what we know. We know that W is the Fredo of the family.
Right.
Trump is Sonny.
Trump is Sonny?
Yes. And Felix Sater is Barzini.
Okay, well,
Now, if that's all true, then you know how it ends up.
When we start having our Luca Brazzis like they're having in Russia, in Paulie's, don't see Paulie around no more. Leave the gun.
Maybe
take the cannoli.
Take the cannoli. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you. He used it all up. Ed in Chicago.
Yeah, hi, Randy.
Hi.
Your first caller made me think of something you said a while ago, and I was wondering if you ever got any feedback on it. When you were talking about how we really need a liberal think tank, something to amplify the message.
We need a bunch of them. Think of all the ones they have.
Yeah, well, my problem isn't, I'm like that caller, my problem is with the Trumpeteers. I just kind of ignore them, but it's with all these coworkers I have that the news is kind of periphery to them, it's just, and you try and explain to them what's really going on, and it's so crazy. They look at you like, you're wearing a tinfoil hat, and then you try and present them with facts. And it's just,
and then they call you a snowflake.
Yeah, well, no, not that. They just, their news is still the corporate. That's where the most of these people get their news from.
No. Their news is Breitbart. Their news is
No. I mean, they go home from work. They put on like NBC, ABC, CBS, and then they eat and go to bed. And those are the people. Like I said, it's these aren't like Breitbart weirdos. These are people who just, the news is not, that's where they get their news, is corporate. And I don't know, I was just wondering if you had heard any feedback or anything at all happening about getting, because we got so many great messengers out there. but it's all kind of scattershot.
No, we're on our own.
I'm just wondering if you had heard anything about that, because I
okay.
Yeah,
no.
When you brought it up, I thought that is a great idea.
It is a great idea, but we're on our own. We really are.
All
We're
right.
on our own is what it is. They have a million things going for them. They've got the Heritage Foundation that buys books from their ne'er-do-well talk show hosts, and then they buy them 25,000 at a time. So the guy goes up to the New York Times bestseller list overnight, and then they give the damn books away because and they take it as a loss. As a business operating loss. I mean, it's such a scam what goes on. But we don't have anything like that on the left. We just don't. We don't support each other. We're like herding cats is what it is. Jason in Simi Valley.
Okay. I'm going to defend AOL.
I hit a nerve.
No, there's a reason. Yeah, that's only been gone for 20 years, okay?
I know.
But here's the thing about AOL. Their privacy their agreements are much better than Gmail.
Then how did he get hacked?
What?
He got hacked.
Everybody gets friggin' hacked, Randy.
Oh,
Come on.
Please stop it.
Yeah, you want to see Gmail accounts get hacked? Thank you. The other thing
I don't use Gmail.
Every email account gets one time or another gets hacked. That's just life. But I did want to mention one thing before the show goes away about the Citolini going out trying to attack Schumer and Pelosi for meeting with the Russians back in 2003, and it's like they should be investigated. Yeah, for when they were on a record, elected and in office, and having an official meeting with the Russians. Thank you.
In public.
Eating donuts.
In public.
That's right.
It wasn't behind closed doors, and nobody lied about it. They allowed them to take photographs because they were in public. And this thing about Hillary Clinton and photos of her with Vlad, anybody remember she was Secretary of State? She was supposed to meet with him?
I do, but I can tell you one other thing that everyone should remember about Citolini and all of this. I just want to make this point. Drip, drip, drip. It's not going away.
No, it's not going away.
And
because they lied. That's the thing. If they would have been forthcoming and they would have said, listen, we love the Russians. They're a great source of finances for us.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have won, but they would have been honest. So, listen, we're out of time. I'm so sorry. Enjoy your weekend. Buy a stinking podcast. Thank you very much. We will leave this show up for free because the explanation is so simple, and you must repeat it. He needed the money. He went to the Russians. They gave it to him. Everything was cool until the sanctions. And then they recruited him, and he didn't think he could win without their help. There's the crime, okay? All right, then. Beer o'clock.
You've got mail.
Go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.